Just before midnight on the 7th of December 1941, Flying Officer Peter Gibbs stepped off the train at Kota Bharu on the coast of northeast Malaya after a long, tiring journey up the peninsula from Singapore. Gibbs, an airline pilot in peacetime, had been newly posted to the Royal Australian Air Force's 1 Squadron, which in the ensuing hours would become the first Australian military unit to see action in the Pacific War. Soon after he headed for bed at the officers' mess at Kota Bharu Airfield, the sound of gunfire shattered the balmy night air. Reassured by the mess staff that the noise was simply an exercise, Gibbs tried to snatch some sleep. Then, as the firing intensified, he quickly dressed and headed straight for the squadron operations room. There he was greeted by a scene of utter confusion as the duty operations officer barked orders at stunned 1 Squadron pilots to get their Lockheed Hudson aircraft airborne, head out to sea and drop some bombs. Not far off the coast, Japanese transport vessels had commenced disembarking 5,000 troops destined to land on the sandy beaches a short distance from Kota Bharu Airfield. In Malaya, it was soon after 2 a.m. on 8 December, an hour before the surprise Japanese air raid thousands of kilometers away on the other side of the Pacific Ocean at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. The Pacific War had begun. According to leading RAAF historian Alan Stevens, Gibbs grabbed a life jacket and parachute, and as he headed for the Hudsons lined up along the airfield's grass strip, inquired, "Which way is it to the sea?" The reply was to head for the flashes and bangs. Arriving at his allocated aircraft, he found his 3 aircrew. None had ever met him, and he was not wearing any rank or pilot's wings that might have reassured them of his legitimacy, writes Stevens. Yet they were expected to put their lives in his hands, as they flew together for the first time into combat. This was amateurism on a grand scale. Once airborne, Gibbs quickly located the incoming Japanese transports, and at mast height and heading into heavy enemy anti-aircraft fire, dropped 4 250-pound bombs. Within minutes, he was back at the Kota Bharu airfield to rearm for another sortie. In early December 1941, intelligence reports began flowing into the Royal Air Force's Far East Command in Singapore, citing Japanese shipping and aircraft movements in the South China Sea, heading west towards the Gulf of Siam. 4 RAAF squadrons, Number 1 and 8 squadrons equipped with Hudson light bombers, and Number 21 and 453 squadrons equipped with obsolete Brewster Buffalo fighters, had been deployed to Singapore's Sembawang airfield from late 1940. In August 1941, anticipating a possible Japanese invasion of Malaya, 1 squadron had relocated to Kota Bharu, close to the Thai border. In early December, 8th Squadron also transferred up the peninsula to Kuantan, with both squadrons assigned reconnaissance roles. On Saturday, the 6th of December, a 3-aircraft patrol from 1 squadron took off from Kota Bharu. Soon after midday, Flight Lieutenant Jack Ramshaw's Hudson spotted Japanese naval vessels heading into the Gulf of Siam, an estimated 400 kilometers northeast of Kota Bharu. A sizable enemy naval convoy had been identified, including 1 battleship, 5 cruisers, 7 destroyers, and 22 transports. The following day brought heavy rain and dense low-level cloud, making aerial reconnaissance difficult for 1 squadron's patrols. But by late afternoon, Japanese naval vessels had been detected just 170 kilometers north of Kota Bharu. In fact, 3 large Japanese transports, protected by 2 battle cruisers and a destroyer screen, were steaming towards Kota Bharu, with 1 squadron's aerodrome a key objective for the initial Japanese assault on Malaya. Faced with mounting evidence of an imminent seaborne invasion, the British High Command in Singapore vacillated. The Commander-in-Chief, Air Chief Marshal Robert Brooke Popham, declined to implement Matador, the defense plan for Malaya, and initiate any preemptive strike against the incoming Japanese invasion force. Notwithstanding the intelligence gleaned from Allied aerial reconnaissance, the Singapore command believed the Japanese were headed for Thailand. Within hours, hostilities were underway, and one squadron launched repeated attacks on the enemy's landing craft, and transports headed for Kota Bharu, scoring a direct hit on the 9,800-ton transport Awagisan Maru, the first Japanese merchant ship to be sunk in the Pacific War.
We knew they were coming because on the 6th of December, one squadron had found them, the whole fleet, and then they disappeared because the damn monsoon started almost the same day. The Japanese had done a very careful study of the weather, I might add, as well. And we were not called for the war until the evening of the 7th of December. And we were told to bomb up and get ready to go up and bomb Japanese ships because they had seen the ones that were off the Thai coast. So we were called up from Quanton in the early part of the 8th of December. And when we got there, the one squadron were already into it, and the Japanese were already landing on the beach, right opposite the airfield. Which had been heavily defended and prepared for the possibility of beach invasion. So on the first morning, 8th Squadron joined 1 Squadron in this attack on what was 3 ships and a bunch of support barges, landing barges, that were putting the troops ashore. And we did the usual hosing operation. I tried to bomb a ship and blew myself up. So I had to force land at Kota Bharu. One engine nearly fell out of the aeroplane and I chucked it on the ground there and spent the day waiting to go home. We left Kota Bharu the night of that first day. The Japs were already inside the fence.
One of the RAAF bombers, A-1694, piloted by Flight Lieutenant John Jones, which had taken off at 2:20 a.m., was lost only minutes afterwards. Jones and his crew, First Officer Ron Siggins and Sergeants Graham Hedges and David Walters, were the first Australians to die in the war. By midday on the 8th of December, Japanese forces had successfully established a bridgehead on the Malay Peninsula, and Kota Bharu airfield itself came under repeated attack from Japanese Navy Zero fighters flying from nearby Thailand. In the afternoon, the situation became perilous, with pockets of Japanese troops penetrating close to the airfield perimeter. Just before dusk, having received orders from Singapore that the airfield should be abandoned, 1 Squadron's 5 remaining serviceable aircraft took off for Kuantan, heavily laden with men and vital supplies. A total of 8 aircraft had been lost in the short-lived battle to defend Kota Bharu. As the victorious Japanese swept down the Malay Peninsula, the 2 badly depleted RAAF squadrons soon found themselves back in Singapore before evacuating to Palembang in Sumatra and thence to Java, where many surviving members of 1 Squadron ended up as Japanese prisoners of war. For the RAAF, the action at Kota Bharu had proved a bitter lesson, underscoring a manifest lack of effective combat air power and shattering long-held assumptions about the inferior military capability of their foe.